Hi, I wanted to talk to you guys about alcohol use disorder and the stigma against it. It's a wide topic, so I was thinking about breaking it down. The first thing I wanted to talk about is alcohol use disorder and how it's diagnosed. All I'm going to do is list what the DSM says. Anyone who meets 2 of the 11 criteria that I'm about to list during the same 1-year period can receive a diagnosis of alcohol use disorder, and I'm going to list it like right here so you guys can look at it. What an easier thing to do is to see if someone has alcohol use disorder or whether you have it is to ask a series of questions. I received these questions from the National Institute of Alcohol Abuse and Alcoholism, and some of the questions include: had times when you ended up drinking more or longer than you intended, more than once wanted to cut down or stop drinking but couldn't, spent a lot of time drinking or being sick or getting over the after effects, experiencing cravings, found that drinking or being sick from drinking often interfered with taking care of your home or family. Moving on to the stigma part behind alcohol use disorder. There's so much stigma that I can't list all the stats. In fact, I will just put all the stats here and all the stats here. One of these stats come from New Zealand, and they're asking people what they classify as a mental illness. So 95% classified schizophrenia as a mental illness, 57% depression, and at the very lowest, 32% alcoholism. These stats consider alcoholism due to bad character or one of the lower considerations, and they're really not mental illnesses. It doesn't help when you say, oh, it's not a mental illness. It in fact makes it worse. According to studies, alcohol dependence is not restricted to physical health. Alcoholism has profound negative effects on one's social behavior, social interactions, and social environment. The stigma of alcoholism is likely just to aggravate these effects. It may hinder seeking out professional help because people fear being labeled an alcoholic. And that just makes it worse because they can't see, if you don't consider it a mental illness because of your stigma against alcohol use disorder, then the person who's suffering from it won't also consider it. And they'll be afraid and they won't come out and actually seek the help that's needed. And they won't improve. And it's just this vicious cycle that continuously causes even more stigma. I'm going to list one more stigma that's for alcohol use disorder. And it's a UK survey in 1998 where 71% rated an alcoholic to be unpredictable and 65% rated an alcoholic to be a danger to others. There is a lot of stigma, but there's also a lot of facts showing that there's alcohol abuse and domestic violence, but it can be, I can't say, oh no, those facts are false. In a sense, what you're doing by saying that that applies to all people who suffer from alcohol use disorder is just contributing to that stigma. So one of the quotes that really touched me was one that said, affected individuals have the right to be judged by their personal behavior, not the stereotypes attached to the diagnostic label. I'm sure there are people you know who suffer from alcohol use disorder, and maybe they do drive drunk. That describes them at a personal level. Now to go out and say, see someone else who suffers from alcohol use disorder and say they must be doing the same thing is a generalization. The idea that because you suffer from alcohol use disorder, you must be weak-willed. That like, oh, okay, I drink alcohol and I'm not addicted, so then you must just not have as much willpower as me. An easy way to understand why that you may not be addicted while someone other may become addicted to alcohol is not because they're weak-willed, as like I'm going to keep mentioning. It's because when you drink alcohol, the effects that it creates are pleasant and you like it. And the difference is that someone else might have their brain light up and say that they want it. And that difference between like and want is what causes this addiction. I want to end with, you can't judge people in general based on their diagnosis. It's people with alcohol use disorder. It's not just alcoholics.